So today we are gonna be familiarizing ourselves with the book of Proverbs, and we want to know what the Proverbs, the book of Proverbs is. We want to know who the authors are, the structure, and also the purposes of this book. So let's get on to it. The book of Proverbs. Everyone knows the value of good advice. Listening to this, to those who are wiser than we are, gives us the benefit of their hard-won experience. Growing up, getting along with the others, and holding a job all would be impossible without guidance from folks who have been there before. The book of Proverbs gives us that kind of help. But the book is more than a collection of tips and tricks. It passes on a core of knowledge and experience that God says we must have if we are to live successfully. These proverbs are not merely old sayings that concerns people in far-off lands, but universal principles that apply to all people of all times. They speak to modern problems as much as to ancient ones because they concern human nature and God's ways. Human nature has not changed since Solomon's time. Neither has God's. Only the landscape around us has changed. Let us understand that. So who are the authors of this book? King Solomon wrote many proverbs, more than those which have survived to this day. The title of the book of Proverbs and the two collections of maxims within it identify him as their author. First Kings confirms this by attributing 3,000 proverbs and more than 1,000 songs to him. In fact, the writer of Kings boasted that Solomon's wisdom exceeded that of all the wise men in the East and Egypt. Solomon's interest and research covered nearly every aspect of knowledge, from zoology and botany to grammar and theology. To think of wisdom in Israel was to think of Solomon, who was granted wisdom by God, gracious gift. He was granted wisdom by God's gracious gift. And we see that in 1 Kings chapter 3:12. Although Solomon was the main writer of the book of Proverbs, some proverbs were written by other writers, and some of Solomon's were not added to the book until after his death. Agur wrote chapter 30. Lemuel wrote 31. Moreover, it is not clear whether Solomon wrote the first 9 chapters. They may have been contributed by someone else as an introduction to the book. I'm sure these are things we did not even know. Proverbs 25:1 tells us that a group of assistants to King Hezekiah compiled and added the Proverbs of Solomon contained in chapters 25 to 29. That is Proverbs 25 to 29. The book of Proverbs as we know it may well have been completed during Hezekiah's time. But we cannot be certain because we have no information about Agur or Lemuel besides their names. So you hear there are some writers also that wrote the book of Proverbs and not only King Solomon. So Solomon's 375 proverbs appears as a large collection with no particular organization to the whole. In places, a few sentences on one theme appear together, but other sentences on that theme often appear elsewhere as well. We might expect all Proverbs on poverty to be in one section and all on child rearing in another, but these are meaning they are all mixed up, yes. And these are many other topics. There are many other topics that are interspersed throughout the collection. Sometimes repeated words or sounds are the link between separate sentences. It may be that phrases repeat, suggesting a new linking of ideas. So, in addition to the Proverbs that stand alone at the beginning and ending on the book, sections of extended instructions appear together. These chapters containing some of the same proverbs as the rest of the book, but as units they differ greatly from the main section of Solomon's Proverbs. Unlike the scattered arrangements of Solomon's main section, these chapters develop themes. So, the purpose of the book of Proverbs, let's get to know the purpose and the theme. The prologue states the book's purpose and theme. It is to give a course of instruction in wisdom, preparation for life, and the ways of life in God's world. Many topics such as riches, success, and social relations appear in other collections of wisdom. Literature that have survived from the ancient Middle East, but they are treated differently. Israel's contribution to wisdom literature was to place all wisdom in the context of faith in the Lord. The words, the fear of the Lord, is the beginning of knowledge. That is 1:7. Set the record straight, so to speak. This is the foundation on which all other wise sayings stand. It is the book of Proverbs' central idea. Fear of the Lord motivates us to obey God's commandments, and obedience to them constitutes true wisdom. So, Christ in the scriptures, although Jesus is not identified by name, it is clear that the writer is describing him. Wisdom, godlike and perfect, is the personified I have been established from everlasting, from the beginning, before there was even an earth. When he prepared heavens, I was there. I was besides him as a master craftsman, and I was daily in his delight. Compare that to John 1:1-3. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. The divine wisdom is also the source of biological and spiritual life. It is right and moral. It is available to all who will receive. So that's the book of Proverbs. We have gotten to know many things about it that we didn't know, and we thank God for that teaching. So we'll continue and read scriptures in the book of Proverbs, knowing that we have been educated who the authors are, and we have heard that it is King Solomon and assisted by a few other writers. King Solomon wrote many proverbs, more than those which have survived to this day. The title of the book of Proverbs and two collections of maxims within it identify him as their author. But we have also heard that although Solomon was the main writer in the book of Proverbs, some proverbs were written by other writers, and some of the Solomons were not added to the book until after his death. Did you know that? There is this writer who is very little known, and I didn't know about him. His name is Agur, wrote Proverbs chapter 30. And we also know that Remuel wrote Proverbs chapter 31. 1 to 9. So in our next video, we are going to read Proverbs chapter 30 and Proverbs chapter 31. Let us meet there in the next video.